So since many people consider this game to be the worst Sonic game ever made, you'll be teaming up with him for this review.
Alright, I guess I can work with him. Hey, why not you?
Unfortunately I can't. I've never played this game before.
But I thought you were playing it just now.
I gotta go. See you later.
Okay then.
That was a close one. Also, maybe it is about time I play Sonic 06. I haven't done a review in a while anyways. Yeah, let's do it. First things first, I gotta get a console that plays 06. I could get an Xbox 360 since that version of 06 runs better. But nah, I have an Xbox Series X. I'll just get a PS3 instead. Okay, my friends may have given me a chance to play this game for a bit, but I've still got to go all the way. So let's do this. So, Sonic 06. Widely known as the game that tarnished the reputation of the entire Sonic franchise. I'm sure you all know the history behind this game. It was anticipated to be the biggest and best Sonic game yet. But because Sega wanted the game out for the 15th anniversary, they forced Sonic Team to rush the game out the door. And to make matters worse, Sega also split Sonic Team in half so that they could have a Sonic game out on the Wii as well, since it would be impossible to port 06 to the Wii because Nintendo didn't care for HD graphics for some reason. Anyways, the game came out in November 2006 and it was hated by critics and fans alike. They criticized just about everything about the game, including the load times, the bugs and glitches, and the awfully confusing story. However, in recent years, after we have gotten arguably worse games such as Boom Rise of Lyric, Forces and Colors Ultimate, people have been looking back at 06 less harshly. Definitely not in the same way as Unleashed, as most people view it as a decent game, whereas 06 is still regarded as a bad game, but not terrible. Personally, I've never played 06 as a kid. In fact, I never really played much of the mainline Sonic games as a kid. Why? Because I'm bad at video games. I eventually got around to playing the mainline Sonic games during my teens, and as of the recording of this video, the only ones I haven't played are Lost World and Shadow the Hedgehog. And I first got to play 06 when my friends and I started a Let's Play on it on our collab channel, Blood Production. Go check it out if you want. Here,
Wow!
Yeah, after playing this game for the first time, I had to play the rest of it. So I got myself a PS3 and played through the whole stinking game. So is this game as bad as many people describe it, or is it a hidden gem? Well, let's find out. Similar to its predecessor, Sonic 06's story is broken up between several characters, and once you play through all of them, you'll unlock the final story. Our story starts with newcomer Silver the Hedgehog in a post-apocalyptic environment and... Wait, is that Blaze? Isn't she supposed to be from another dimension? Yeah, I should probably bring up the fact that this game is supposed to be a reboot, and that none of the characters' backstories should matter, but I'm gonna get into that later. So Silver and Blaze spend most of their time fighting this giant monster named Iblis. Silver is understandably frustrated that they can't get rid of Iblis for good and questions if there's a way to actually do that. Enter Mephiles the Dark, a reskin of Shadow with no mouth who is also obsessed with Fortnite. Mephiles claims that there is a way to destroy Iblis for good, and Silver trusts him. Look, I know people say that Silver is stupid for trusting Mephiles since he's very menacing looking and he obviously looks like he's up to no good. But you gotta remember, Silver literally lives in an apocalyptic environment, and he's desperate to do anything to save the world at this point. Mephiles tells Silver that the flames of disaster were released by none other than Sonic the Hedgehog.
I see it! So that blue hedgehog's the Iblis trigger?
hedgehog.
Wait a minute, I thought this game was a reboot. How does Blaze remember a blue hedgehog if Sonic Rush isn't supposed to be canon? Again, I'll get more into this reboot situation later. Anyways, Mephiles sends the duo back in time to prevent the day of disaster. Cut to the Soliana Sun Festival, we are introduced to another new character, Princess Elise. Probably one of the most hated characters ever. Anyways, just as the festival is getting started, it gets interrupted by Dr. Eggman.
A pleasure to meet you at last, Princess of Soliana.
Do I even need to say anything? I mean, really, what can I say that hasn't already been said before? I know this game was a reboot and it was going for a more realistic approach, but this... my god, that is not Eggman! Whatever. So Dr. Eggman wants to kidnap Elise so that he can unlock the Flames of Disaster, but of course Sonic intervenes and saves Elise. But then she gets kidnapped like a minute later. And let that be a summary for the entirety of Sonic's campaign. Sonic saves Elise, 5 minutes later she gets kidnapped again, rinse and repeat. Anyway, Silver manages to locate Sonic and is ready to take him out, but then Amy Rose comes out of nowhere and inadvertently foils his assassination attempt on Sonic. Silver loses sight of Sonic and Amy, feeling guilty, decides to help him out, completely unaware that he was actually looking for Sonic and that he was planning to kill him. She eventually learns this the hard way the next day when Silver finds Sonic after he rescued Elise from Eggman in Dusty Desert. As the two are fighting, Elise gets kidnapped again, and Silver is about to deliver the finishing blow, but then is stopped by Amy, allowing Sonic to escape. Sonic and Tails meet up with Knuckles, and together they head to White Acropolis to rescue Elise again, where they are given a glimpse of Eggman's big plan to control time and space as he uses a machine to send them to the post-apocalyptic future Silver came from. They then meet up with Shadow and Rouge and... ah, dang it, looks like we gotta go back a bit. So, Shadow's story begins with him breaking into Dr. Eggman's base to rescue Rouge the Bat, who was retrieving an artifact known as the Scepter of Darkness. As they arrive in Kingdom Valley, they are ambushed by Dr. Eggman, and Rouge drops the Scepter of Darkness, causing a mysterious being to emerge from it.
Welcome to Tilted Towers.
This mysterious being introduces himself as Mephiles the Dark, the same dude from the beginning of Silver's story, and he also claims to know Shadow. Mephiles uses his time travel abilities to send Shadow and Rouge to the post-apocalyptic future where they meet up with Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles. Shadow noted that when Mephiles sent them to the future, his power felt very similar to his Chaos control, so he suggests that using 2 emeralds should create a time rift that should bring them back to the present. Okay, so they can time travel at will? What the fuck? That's so stupid! At this point, the Chaos Emeralds are way too overpowered. Whatever. So after a long and boring boss fight with Iblis, Sonic and Co head back to the present, while Shadow stays behind to confront Mephiles. And this actually leads to one of my favorite moments in the game. So Mephiles informed Shadow that after Iblis is released, humanity blame him for what happened, and because they feared his power, he was sealed away. I mean, I wouldn't blame them for fearing him after he tried to destroy the world in SA2. Mephiles tries to use this to provoke Shadow into joining the dark side, but Shadow, being the selfless person he is, tells Mephiles to fuck right off, and that his future is up to him to decide. Shadow fights off Mephiles with the help of E123 Omega, who had spent the past 200 years in standby mode, and they follow Mephiles back to the present. Meanwhile, Sonic rescues Elise again, has another encounter with Silver, and Elise gets kidnapped again! Silver is about to finish off Sonic once and for all, but is thwarted by Shadow, whom Silver mistakes for Mephiles. The two duke it out, and then Shadow does this.
Chaos control!
Okay, but seriously, this scene never gets old. Silver attempts to give Shadow a taste of his own medicine, and both activate a time portal, which just so happens to take them back 10 years into the past. And the two witness the Duke of Soliana experimenting on a being known as Solaris. And of course, the experiment goes wrong, and Solaris is separated into 2 beings, Mephiles and Iblis. Shadow seals Mephiles away in the Scepter of Darkness, hence why Mephiles claims to know Shadow at the beginning of his story, and displays how confusing time travel can be as a plotline to begin with. Silver attempts to destroy Iblis, but then the douche of Soliana explains that they can only stop Iblis if they seal it in a royal soul, with the only candidate being his daughter, Princess Elise. Yep, this guy just seals the flames of disaster in his unconscious daughter's body. Screw Thanos, screw Darth Vader, or Ego, this guy is the worst father ever. And on top of that, he explains that Elise can't cry, otherwise Iblis will be released. And then he dies. Okay, hold on a minute. So, you mean to tell me that Elise hasn't cried for a whole decade? What the fuck? How is that even possible? How did she not even cry after hearing her father died? Why doesn't anything in this goddamn game make any sense? Okay, I'm sorry about that. Back to the story. So Shadow and Silver return to the present, and Silver, after learning that Sonic is not the enemy, decides to help him save Elise, since she's been kidnapped for the 8th millionth time. But then the egg carrier out of nowhere begins to malfunction and crash. Silver then remembers that they can just use time travel at will and fix everything. So Sonic travels back to the not too distant past, and Silver goes back to the future with a plan to defeat Iblis once and for all, by using the Chaos Emeralds to seal the monster inside of him. But he is rejected, and Blaze, growing tired of being useless, decides to use the Chaos Emeralds to seal Iblis inside of her. It works, but unfortunately she dies in the process. The world is saved, but Silver lost his best friend. Damn, poor kid. Meanwhile, back in the present, Shadow confronts Memphis, Tennessee once again, and tries to seal him back in the Scepter of Darkness, but of course that strategy doesn't work a second time. Mephiles then questions Shadow why he continues to fight for good even though he knows humanity will turn on him, to which he responds with,
If the world chooses to become my enemy, I will fight like I always have.
Man, it seems like this that make me a Shadow fan. He doesn't care what people think of him, whether he is an android or not, it doesn't matter to him. All that matters to him is fulfilling his promise to Maria, no matter what. This is Shadow to me, not whoever this faker is. Oh yeah, and Sonic saves Elise once again and they bond together. Yeah, I probably should have brought this up earlier, but Sonic and Elise start bonding together, and the reason why most people don't like this is because it's a human princess that has feelings for an anthropomorphic blue hedgehog. But personally, that's not the reason why I find this relationship weird, since there is media out there that does this sort of thing. The reason why this relationship is weird in my opinion, it's probably just the fact that Sonic was never meant to be the romantic type. It just doesn't really suit his character. I guess I should have brought this aspect of the story up sooner, but this plot is just so all over the place that I didn't know where else to put it. But hey, at least we got through the 3 main storylines. Now on to the last story. So as it turns out, Mephiles is actually still at large. He finds Sonic and Elise in the forest, distracts them with a light, and then... Yep, Sonic fucking dies. And I guess since Elise missed all the frequent kidnapping, she cries and Iblis is released. Mephiles uses this opportunity to rejoin with Iblis, becoming Solaris once again and destroying the entire space-time continuum. Somehow Sonic's friends are unscathed, Silver's here for some reason, and Eggman is also here for some reason. Seriously? How did Solaris's giant light not kill any of them? How come they're the only ones who survived this? Oh, and on top of that, Sonic's dead corpse is also here for some reason. But then all of a sudden Elise says that she feels Sonic's presence in the wind, suggesting that he's not dead yet? I don't know. I don't know what any of this fucking means. Which then gives Silver the idea that they can revive Sonic from the dead using the Chaos Emeralds. Okay, hold the phone a second. So, you're telling me that not only can the Chaos Emeralds give someone the ability to turn into a super form, teleport someone to a different location, or even a different point in time, but they can also revive the dead? No! At this point, the Chaos Emeralds are basically just a get out of jail free card for Sonic & Co, since they can just use them to solve everything. And I'm aware that they were based off of them, but that doesn't mean that Chaos Emeralds are freaking Dragon Balls! So anyways, they all gather the 7 Chaos Emeralds, and I think we all know what happens next.
Sonic, come back.
No! God!
To us.
No! God, please, no! No! No!
So, Sonic is brought back from the dead, he shares some of his super energy with Shadow and Silver, and the trio take down Solaris together. Once Solaris is defeated, Sonic and Elise are suddenly transported back to a time when Solaris was just a tiny flame. They then realize if they blow out the flame now, the events of the game will no longer happen and they will never have to worry about the flames of disaster. But Elise don't want to do it because it means that she and Sonic will never meet.
I don't care what happens to the world.
What the fuck? Are you kidding me? This bitch would rather let the world burn than risk losing Sonic forever? Fuck you, Elise! Jeez, I've been cursing a lot throughout this video, haven't I? So anyways, Sonic tells Elise to just smile and she blows out the flame. And that's it. The entire game is wiped from canon.
Oops!
So yeah, that was Sonic 06's story. And wow, it was one big mess. Now, there are aspects of the story that I do legitimately like, such as Shadow's characterization. Once again, I love the way Shadow is portrayed in this game. And this is a huge step up from the horrendous writing of Shadow the Hedgehog. The game, not the character. Shadow's personality in this game feels much closer to how it was in SA2 and Heroes. Well, Heroes more specifically, I guess, since he was pretty much a bad guy for most of SA2 before Amy helped him out with remembering what Maria actually wanted him to do, and you get the point. Shadow in this game actually cares for his friends instead of leaving them in the dust, and he's actually willing to work with Sonic instead of, you know, calling him annoying and constantly having the need to say that he's better than him in every way. And most importantly, as I mentioned earlier, he doesn't care what anyone thinks of him, and he will continue to fight for good, no matter what. Okay, I'm done gushing over how much I love Shadow in this game. Let's move on. You wanna know who else I liked in this story? Silver. I legitimately like his character arc, his friendship with Blaze, and how Shadow acts as a sort of mentor towards him. Silver is one of the most underrated characters in my opinion, and I loved him even before I played this game. Because, you know, you don't need to play a game to watch its cutscenes, you can just look them up on YouTube. But overall, this story at its best has legitimately good moments, but at its worst, it's impossible to comprehend what the fuck is going on. And as some people have said before me, time travel is almost never a good plot device, because it's very easy to execute poorly and leave the audience confused. Even Back to the Future is guilty of this. Like, how does Doc remember Marty from his trip in 1955 in the first movie, but in the third movie, when he goes back to 1885, how does he have no memory of his second encounter with him in 1955, after he came back from the future? This is so confusing to explain. Let's just get back to the review. And once again, the Sonic and Elise romance was just so unnecessary. And then there's the fact that this game is a reboot. Personally, I consider this game to be a soft reboot like God of War PS4. From what I hear, the game does take place in the same continuity as the older games, and Kratos' character development gets carried over as well, but at the same time it's not important to the context of that game's story, and it doesn't alienate new players who haven't gotten around to playing the previous entries. And Sonic 06 is kinda like that to me, since all the characters seem to know each other very well, and as I mentioned, Shadow's character progression from SA2 and Heroes carries over to this game. We will leave that game out of this discussion, thank you very much. But then we have inconsistencies such as Blaze being from the future but recalls a blue hedgehog, implying that she met Sonic and the events of Sonic Rush are still canon? I don't know. And of course there's Eggman. Ugh, what were they thinking with that design? Let's just move on to the voice acting. The voice acting in this game, unfortunately, isn't the greatest. Look, I love Jason, he's the Sonic of my childhood, but man, this game wasn't really one of his best outings.
Okay, with your help, this should be a piece of cake.
His shadow voice definitely sounds a little better, but it's not perfect. He definitely gives a better performance as these characters in the later games he's in. This game also unfortunately gives us probably the weakest performance from Mike Pollock as Dr. Eggman. Now I love the guy, he will always be the voice of Eggman to me, but again, this was not one of his best outings. Apparently he was actually asked to tone down his performance for this game to fit with the realistic approach. You know, because a game about a blue hedgehog that runs very fast totally needs to be realistic. Now just to be clear, Mike Pollock's performance in this game certainly isn't awful. I mean, it's Mike Pollock after all. But it certainly doesn't compare to literally any of his other performances as the character. The only voices in this game that I actually dislike are E123 Omega and Rouge the Bat. Simply because they just sound completely different from the previous voice actors. And their voices just don't really fit the characters at all. Especially Rouge's voice. She just sounds like she doesn't give a shit half the time. And as for the rest of the voices in this game, some are good, some are not so good. Thankfully, the 4Kids actors do give better performances in the later games they're in. Also, I should probably talk about the cutscenes because holy crap, the lip syncing is awful.
You wish to rule over time?
Yes, truly. And the secret... it remains dormant in you, Princess.
Now, why are the cutscenes like this, you may ask? Well, it's because these cutscenes were actually made to be synced with the Japanese voice actors, and they didn't have time to reanimate them for the English voices, because this game was rushed. Okay, enough about the story. How's the gameplay? Well, to start off, we have a whopping of 9 different characters to play as. Oh boy, this is gonna take a while. Let's start off with Sonic. Sonic has most of his moves from the adventure games such as the homing attack and the spin dash, which is pretty much useless now. You can also buy the lightspeed dash and the bounce bracelet from the shop. The lightspeed dash works about as you would expect, but the bounce ability is a huge downgrade from SA2's version. In SA2 you could move in any direction while bouncing, which made it such a fun move to use. But in this game, to use the bounce ability, you have to stop dead in your tracks and you can't move around while using it. Why? Oh well, at least it's still useful for defeating the enemies with stronger health bars. Sonic can also acquire these gems from the shop, but here's the thing. There's this bar which is supposed to limit Sonic's use of the gems, but because it was never coded properly, you can just abuse them as much as you want. So instead of doing a rundown of all these gems, I'm just going to provide you with some footage that I think speaks for itself. Enjoy! Another thing I want to mention is Sonic's speed. You know, the thing he is known for. If you want to go fast in this game, you're gonna have to rely on all those dash pads that are littered throughout the stages. Because Sonic ain't fast in this game. Look at how fast he is in SA1, and now look at him here. What the heck? World's fastest hedgehog, am I right? Actually, this brings me to one of this game's most infamous gimmicks. The Mach speed stages. Oh, the Mach speed stages. In these sections, Sonic will actually start to show that he is the fastest fucking thing alive and crank his speed up to the max. And there is no way of stopping him. If you jump, you cannot change direction until you land, so you better plan your jumps carefully, otherwise you'll go flying off the stage. What else is there? Oh yeah, there's these sections where Sonic carries Elise. They're about the same as the regular levels, except you can't use the slide attack or the bounce attack. To compensate for this, you get a shield, which can allow you to traverse across water and quicksand. Neat. What else is there? Oh yeah, the snowboarding sections. These sections blow. Why? Well, instead of letting the laws of physics do the work, you control the snowboard with the control stick. No! That is not how a snowboarding mechanic should work in a video game. Ever! And it's so easy to get stuck in these sections. And not to mention that in order to jump while on the snowboard, you have to hold down the jump button instead of just tapping it like in the adventure games. Gosh, how did they screw up the snowboarding section so badly in this game when they got it right in the previous games? Okay, moving on to the next main character, we have Shadow, who plays more or less like Sonic. Only his levels have higher emphasis on combat. On one hand, he is capable of dealing with enemies a lot quicker, but on the other hand, his homing attack is delayed. And it's very annoying when you just wanna get moving! Oh, and there's also these vehicle sections. Truth be told, these aren't all that bad in my opinion. I mean, the motorcycle sections suck, but other than that, the vehicle sections are alright in my opinion. Shadow's upgrades include the Lightspeed Dash and the Chaos Spear, which stuns enemies, and the Chaos Blast, which is only really used on 2 bosses. So overall, Shadow isn't one of the best characters to play as, but he's certainly not the worst either. And as for the last of the main trio, we have newcomer Silver the Hedgehog, who plays completely differently compared to Sonic and Shadow. His main ability is his psychokinesis. With the push of the R1 or RB button, you can create platforms or pick up objects and yeet them at the enemies. Now, I've always liked Silver as a character. I like his backstory, I like his personality, I always picked him in the Olympics games, and actually getting to play as him in one of the mainline games is kind of satisfying to me. So yeah, out of all the characters in this game, I think Silver's a really solid character to play as. And I know a lot of people are gonna disagree with me on that, but hey, it's my opinion. I will say though, Silver is not without his flaws. He can block bullets with his psychokinesis, but you have to press the button for each time an enemy fires at you. Otherwise you'll take a hit and lose all your rings. This is a bit finicky to pull off, but it's really my only issue with Silver's playstyle. You can also buy upgrades for him which include the Ground Slam, which is really useful for stunning a large group of enemies, and an Air Dash which is so worthless. You know how we can see in his very first cutscene that he's practically faster than a speeding bullet? Well, the closest we ever get to that in gameplay is this stupid move. So that's about it for Silver, and once again, while he's not without his flaws, I still find him a really fun character to play as. And it's a shame that he wasn't brought back as a playable character in future games, since I feel they could have ironed out some of his issues. Oh well. But wait, we've still got 6 more characters to talk about, so I guess I should start off with Tails, who is a huge downgrade from his SA1 counterpart. He can only fly for a short period of time, and when he gets tired, he drops to the ground like a freaking tank.
Nope.
And his tail attack has been replaced by this stupid dummy ring bomb attack. And it ain't fun to use at all. And not to mention that he is so slow. Why? Moving on, we have Knuckles. Oh, Knuckles, what have they done to you? His ground combat has been completely butchered, and his glide has a faster descent. Why? How did they screw this up? How did Sonic Team manage to screw up all these gameplay styles? And not to mention the bug where he gets stuck to the wall. Lovely. Next up, we have Rouge the Bat, who... actually, funny enough, is one of the better characters in the game. I'm not kidding, her gliding descent isn't nearly as bad as Knuckles' gliding descent, which makes me question how they screwed that up in the first place. And her main attack is throwing bombs, and if you hold the X/square button, you can throw multiple bombs at once, which is really useful for taking out enemies with stronger health bars. Now, I do prefer her ground combat from SA2, but the attack that she has here is an alright replacement. It is still effective at the very least. But unfortunately, just like Knuckles, she also gets stuck to the wall. So while Rouge in this game is a downgrade from her SA2 counterpart, she is still one of the better characters in this game. Which once again makes me question how Knuckles' gameplay style was f***ed up so badly. Next up we have E123 Omega. He can shoot at enemies and he has a broken hover move which you can use to skip chunks of levels. And that's about it, to be honest. I don't really have much to say about Omega other than that he's a broken character to play as. At least he's not unbearably bad to play as.
Leave this up to me.
Ugh. Amy Rose is probably the worst character in this game. Now I liked Amy in SA1, but just like the other characters' playstyles from SA1 and SA2, they had to fuck up Amy's gameplay style as well. First off, her hammer attack is nowhere near as satisfying to use as it was in SA1. If you want to use it, you have to stop dead in your tracks. You can no longer perform it while running. Oh, and you can't use the somersault anymore. Just freaking perfect. What else can she do? Oh yeah, she has a double jump. And it sucks. And apparently she can turn invisible, which I couldn't be bothered to figure out how to activate. And that's about it for Amy, who is once again hands down the worst character in the game. Alright, who have we got left? Oh, Blaze. Yeah, I'm gonna agree with the majority here. Blaze is one of the best characters in the game. She has an amazing homing attack and a double jump which is way more useful than Amy's, and she can also use her fire powers. Neat. So yeah, for her 3D debut, Blaze is a great character to play as. And unfortunately, like Silver and the other characters, her potential for improvement in future games was kind of wasted. I mean, the only game she appears in after this game is Sonic Rush Adventure, and after that, she's limited to being only playable in the Olympics and kart racers. Just like the rest of the characters. If there is one thing I want to see make a comeback in a future 3D Sonic game, it's multiple playable characters. But anyways, that's about it for the characters in this game, and once again, some are good, some are not so good. And even though I do enjoy playing as some of these characters, I can't help but notice that the returning characters play worse than their adventure counterparts. And to quote what many have said before me, they had the blueprints. How did they screw this up? And once again, it's a darn shame that this is the last 3D Sonic game to have multiple playable characters. Oh well, let's just move on to the actual levels. The levels in this game are actually not that badly designed, surprisingly. I legitimately find enjoyment in playing these stages. Wave Ocean is a pretty good starting level. Is it better than Emerald Coast? Nah, but it's still good. Dusty Desert is also a pretty good level. What I find most interesting about this level is that Sonic explores the outside of the desert while Shadow and Silver explore the ruins. Nice use of variety. So yeah, I really enjoyed this stage.
Great!
Like I said, I really enjoy this stage. Next up we have White Acropolis. This level's okay. If I had to pick my favorite version, I'd probably go with Shadow's version, simply because there's no damn snowboarding section. Crisis City. This is Silver's first level, and I think it's a pretty good introduction level for his gameplay style. I like playing this level as Sonic and Shadow as well. Although in Shadow's version, this happens.
No!
Flame Core. This level's alright. I like that there are multiple pathways that you can take, and I especially love the music. Radical Train. This level is kind of fun, but then there's that damn Mach Speed section. Tropical Jungle. I really like this level. The visuals are really appealing, and overall, this is just a really fun level to play. Silver's version ain't that fun though. It's just alright. And Rouge's version is stupidly easy thanks to her climbing and gliding abilities. Moving on, we have Kingdom Valley, another one of my favorite levels. I like the platforming in this level and the multiple pathways you can take, and believe it or not, I actually like the Mach Speed section in Sonic's level. It's the one not terrible Mach Speed section in the whole game. Good job, Sonic team. Last but not least, we have Aquatic Base. This is a good final level. And you can abuse the power of the purple gem in Sonic's level by jumping over this pit. Also, there's this section in Silver's level where you're supposed to go around the gate by using these platforms to get across the pit, but you can easily just go around it on the other side. How did the level designers miss this? Anyways, that's about it for the levels in this game, and overall I think it's a decent selection. Some are good, some are not so good. Same goes for the boss fights. Some are stupidly easy like the Egg Genesis, but some are stupid waiting games, like the Iblis Worm boss fight, where you have to wait for these platforms to fall so you can get across and attack Iblis. I say again, for this boss fight you have to wait for the platforms to fall. Waiting. In a Sonic game. Screw the Time Eater, this is the worst boss fight in Sonic history. It's not necessarily because it's difficult. The difficulty really comes from having the fucking patience to beat this boss fight. And not to mention that you have to fight this boss as Sonic and Shadow. Why? This is probably the worst boss fight I've ever played in a video game, period. Again, it's not that it's a difficult boss fight, it's just boring. But hey, the final boss with Solaris is really good though. A bit on the easy side since you can easily switch between characters if one of them runs low on rings, but it's still a really fun final boss fight. And the music! Oh my god, the music is so good! So, what else is there to discuss about this game? Oh yeah, the hub worlds. They suck. SA1 had hub worlds as well, but they were very small and you could get around them very quickly. However, in this game, the hub worlds are so huge to the point where it's impossible to know where to go. And the hub worlds also have side missions. Some are required to progress through the story, whereas others are just a huge waste of time. Literally, there are 4 load times in each mission. So here's how it goes. You talk to someone, it loads. The person tells you what you have to do, it loads. You play the mission, it loads again. You get your rank, and the game loads you back into the hub world. And need I mention how long these loading screens are? Normally I tolerate long loading times, but in this case they're everywhere, even during the actual levels. Why? What else is there to mention? Oh yeah, the bugs and glitches. Personally, I never really ran into any bugs or glitches during my playthrough of this game. Except for the one where Knuckles or Rouge get stuck to the wall, but that's about it. And lastly, to end on a high note, the soundtrack. It slaps. This was Tomoya Otani's first go at being the sound director of a Sonic game. And for his first try, he knocked it out of the park. I know I said in my Unleashed review that Unleashed had my favorite soundtrack in any Sonic game, but now I think that award goes to 06. Hell, I'd even go as far as to say that it's my favorite video game soundtrack right now. My favorite songs in the game include Flamecore, Dusty Desert Ruins, Kingdom Valley, and the City Hub World theme. I often throw this song on in the background whenever I'm working on something. I also love the vocal themes in this game. I like Silver's theme, Dreams of an Absolution. I love All Hail Shadow. And I also like the theme for Sonic being His World. There are many versions of the song, and if I had to pick my favorite, I'd probably go with the Zebrahead version. But this song still doesn't come close to It Doesn't Matter. That song is still Sonic's theme song to me. And as I mentioned before, the final boss theme is fire. So yeah, like many others have said before me, this game's soundtrack is amazing and probably the only polished thing in the whole game. And that was Sonic 06, and wow. It's something alright. This game is pretty bad, but not without its strengths. Like I said, I enjoy the soundtrack and some of the aspects of the story, such as Shadow and Silver's campaigns, but the story as a whole is a complete mess. And though I enjoy playing as some of the characters, they're a step down from their adventure counterparts. And there are some characters that just outright suck. But as a whole, I enjoy the game. It ain't a good game by any means, but it's also not the worst game ever made. And I have fun playing it. And that's all that really matters, I guess. A game doesn't have to be good to be fun. A word of advice though, if you're playing this game on a 4K TV, make sure to have your console set to 720p, since the game usually tends to lag more on higher resolution. And since Xbox have started supporting their backwards compatibility program again, it would be cool if this game was added to it, since it could really help fix the load times. Imagine how cool it would be to actually play Sonic 06 without long load times. But anyways, that was Sonic 06. It was a bad game, but it was also a fun one for sure. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see y'all later.
Just ate it.